Winchester Facts. Separating fact from fantasy in our town's government.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Martinez. I'm the chairman of the Republican Town Committee here in Winchester, and I'm sitting in for Bill Pratt, who graciously gave us time in order to get some information about the recent happenings up at the state capitol with regards to the education district here in Winchester. I'm joined by my political wingman, Micky Ham.
Geez, I didn't know I was a wingman.
Yeah, you are.
Wow,
you are.
I'm telling you, this is great. This is great. Yeah, there's we happen to have this evening with us a copy of the bill. Well, we don't have the whole bill, which was 868 pages or 686 pages. We have the 20 lines that are pertinent to the town of Winchester, which Jay Case, I applaud for working as hard as he has in the last 4 months to do this. And I know it had been said that a lot of the members of the community that have been a part of the action, so to speak, with the Board of Education were remiss with Jay saying he wasn't doing anything. I can assure you he was doing plenty. And to put what he put in here in this bill and to get it to pass yesterday, 1 o'clock this morning actually, in which it will be law at midnight tonight. Mm-hmm. I can't say enough good about him. He just did a fantastic job. And I think members of the community, if you see Jay, you should certainly thank him for what he did here.
Because that's the type of action you want to see at the state, where he's definitely helping out the local side of things, and they just don't go off to the state capitol and then they disappear for 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay's done more in his almost 3 years that he's been a legislator than I think the whole group of legislators we had prior to Joe Ruette representing us. So I'm tickled with the job he's doing. I think the majority of the community is as well. And if you're not, you should be.
Especially with this particular item, because this was a critical factor. A lot of emotion involved with this, and so something had to happen, at some point, or to take control of the situation. So, it's good that he was able to drive that home.
Well, Jay's very good at recognizing facts. He's very good in our community. He's very good in this whole areas that he covers. And he recognized what was going on long ago. I think a lot of us have, and we've brought this. He's brought this to fruition to get a receiver to come in and is going to take over our school system. Mm-hmm. Our current Board of Education will be non-effective.
When does that take effect?
Well, I think it's going to be really up to the receiver. Mm-hmm. The receiver, when he comes in, will bring with him probably 2 or 3 of his own staff, and he will appoint a 7-person commission that will work with him from the community. 3 must be from the town of Winchester, and the other 4 hopefully will be as well. But there's a lot of contingencies hooked to that, where you can't be a former Board of Education member, you can't be a working member of the town, you can't have family that's working for the town, you can't be a teacher in the system. So it negates the opportunity for any nonsense,
right,
as we have witnessed in this board.
So we want to have a total transparent
well, that's what that's what he's going to be looking for, he or she.
Right.
And I'm not privy to who it is yet, or who it may be. The receiver will have complete control of our school system. And, some people have said to me, well, what's going to happen here with the costs of all this? And the most important part of this that Jay and a couple of the Republican legislators that he had over there working with him on this and his staff have made this so that all the costs of this receiver and the 2 or 3 people that he will bring as staff are paid for by the state of Connecticut, and there is no cost to the town of Winchester.
Very good.
And
I can hear cheers going out.
Yeah, you can't applaud that any more than what it really is. But with all that said, it doesn't mean that this receiver won't find issues with what may be or may not be happening in our school system. Mm-hmm. There's been talk on the state level of looking at the amount of school space that we occupy. There has been talk of other things, and I have this from Jay, my conversations with Jay, and it appears that they're going to be looking at a number of things. They're going to be looking at, number one, the educational process that our children have. They're going to be looking at the amount of space that they occupy, and perhaps, which during my adventures as a selectman here in town, we pushed to close the school, and at that time, the State Board of Education was in favor of it. The local Board of Education at that time, the superintendent was in favor of it, and there was a possibility that, probably not even a possibility, it was probably an application that we needed to fill out to reduce our MBR, which would have reduced the cost of education. Now, since I've gotten out of office in my administration, our cost of education has gone from $15,000 a student to upwards of $18,000.
Oh, really? It's that high?
Yeah. Well, so it's out of control, and now it hopefully will be brought back into control. A few of the other things are, this receiver will be here for a minimum of 2 years. And it may go as much as 4 years, depending on how this goes and how future boards of education are put together and elected. Will they have any power? They won't have any power until the receiver grants them power. And I think it's going to be a matter of showmanship from those folks who may be elected in November to see how this goes forward. And as the receiver has faith in certain people that are elected, I think you may see, and I think you may see that receiver appoint those people in an officiated fashion. Mm-hmm. In the interim, there still will be the 7-member appointed team that he will have under him.
So that our current board of
education
is out the door,
is not effective
as of now.
As of midnight tonight. And anything, I know they're having a meeting this evening, but anything that they probably do in that meeting will be non-effective.
Right, because it's actually state law.
Yes, this is law.
This isn't some ruling or anything like that.
No,
this is
hardcore. This is hardcore. This is the real stuff.
Yeah.
I think that folks can probably be at ease with the aspects of having real people who really know what they're doing running our educational system. And I, for one, couldn't be happier.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. One of the things I'm sure everybody's wondering is what happens to all the contracts, all the legal stuff that is put in place by this. We have all these consultants, we have a lot of weird financial things going on. What happens to all that?
They're non-existent.
So as of midnight tonight, we're starting from scratch.
We have one guy at the helm, or we will have one guy at the helm, and that will be the receiver.
Excellent.
Everything that is contracted, everything that's negotiated is out the door, and it's almost you could call it a new beginning.
Yeah, no, I think so.
And needed.
Right.
Rightfully so.
Now, one of the other things which I know everybody in the town's been clamoring for years is a budget. And I know I'm looking at the document here, and it's saying that they'll develop a school budget for the district and deliver the same to the town manager for the town of Winchester in accordance with the town charter for the town of Winchester. So that, I think, just getting somebody to do that so we know exactly where our MVR money and the rest of the money that they're getting, where it's actually going.
Yes, and it certainly will help our finance board, which is the Board of Selectmen, to have a firm understanding prior to developing their budget of what's going to be expected of them. So it puts the needs become a fashion.
Right.
Everyone is on the same page.
So we have real financial control, just like we've done in the town side.
Right. And that's that's a problem for anybody supporting a budget that isn't well. For instance, our past budget, we didn't know where we were going to be with our $730,000 fine for the state, and how do you support a budget when you didn't know? We didn't even know it was $730,000.
Right. It was all sort of up in the air.
It was in the air. We knew it was going to hover between $7 and $1 million. So it's hard. How do you plan for that? How does the Board of Finance plan for that? It's a difficult. It's a dartboard method, and a dartboard method doesn't work well. It never has for the town of Winchester.
Right, and to this day, I mean, they still can't come up with the real numbers. So
Right. So now we'll be able to have someone who not only has an educational background, but has a finance background that understands what his needs are for educational values and his needs are for the finances of that education.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a perfect picture.
Oh, you got it.
That's a perfect picture.
Now, the other thing is that, and I think this also has been lacking in the town, is the fact that the parents and the students and the employees really didn't have a voice in what was going on. We're talking a lot of the issues here at the administrative level, at the Board of Ed, and at the superintendent level, but there's a lot of people who are out there, doing their silent scream as to, the stuff going on and we don't like it. And there was no mechanism for them to be able to voice their outrage, except for doing freedom of information type requests.
Well, and frustrating again at best when things surface of hotel rooms in New York City at $11,000 expense and things like that, and people couldn't get that information without freedom of information, and then they couldn't. Still, with freedom of information, they wouldn't get it, so they'd have to take it to the commissioner.
Yeah, it was a long process.
A long process, and very frustrating for a number of people. But there's a few people who work very, very diligently and very hard at obtaining those facts. And I think all of those facts had an impact on what has transpired in legislation here. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. We're also getting into the fact of, what are the financial practices? I mean, what was actually going on in our Board of Ed and in the district here?
The dartboard method.
I don't even know if it's a dartboard. It was like a black box, and hopefully everything was working out all right.
It's funny, though, in a sense that I guess you got to give some people credit for last year returning $400,000 of
before they knew what was going on.
Yeah, of what they had. Had they known and had they had a line item budget, then they'd have been able to expend probably that money in areas that were required or needed to help the kids. Bring them to where they needed to go.
Because now we have that money being deposited into the fund balance. I mean, that money that we were expecting actually went places.
Yes.
That we all voted on in the end of May. So now all that's in, sort of limbo.
But while we're on the subject of that $730,000, this legislation, again, thank you, Jay Case, that $730,000 is forgiven.
Oh, really?
The town of Winchester doesn't need to repay it.
Excellent.
There's some caveats, I think, attached to that, where if some things happen, and I don't remember the language of it, I think as you blare down through there, you may find out, in the next 2 years, they may be able to pay back or a portion of it in small increments over 10 years or 20 years. And I'm not sure how that worked. Jay did explain it to me, but there was so much he was explaining to me that it was a lot to absorb. And I'm certain that he's, and I hope he is, taking a valued rest that is well deserved, because after going through this this afternoon and reading it, I said to myself, this is the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to the town of Winchester, because we're not going to get pinged for anything here. We may see some additional expenses arise,
Depending on what rocks you overturn. Yeah.
right? But I think any good administrator is going to look at this in both aspects, in the educational process and in the financial process. And the goal and objectives are to make those two balance.
Right.
So with real people at the helm, the ship is being steered in a good direction, and it should make port on time.
Well, one of the things I also like about this is that the state's not really trying to punish the taxpayers of Winchester. I mean, the taxpayers here have faced about 18 tax increases over the past years, and I know when they heard this, they're probably saying, well, you know what? Based on what happened to bigger cities like Waterbury and Bridgeport, we're in for a boatload of tax increases.
Yes.
What does Jay say about that?
No, I don't believe that's going to happen. I think it's probably going to be a 6-month to 1 year process before
we actually get a handle as to what's
this
going on.
receiver really makes some drastic changes. I think the biggest thing is, and most important thing, is to make sure the kids are getting what they need right off the bat. I think the second thing and most important thing to me would be the finance portion of that. And I think you're going to see his staff and he develop a budget, line item budget very quickly, and get after the larger problems first, via the special ed issues and things like that. And I think you're going to see that sort of thing happen, and it's going to happen probably rapidly. But I think with the amount of misdiligence that has existed in the last couple of years in Board of in Superintendent's office and so on, I think you're going to see a lot of things that are going to come to light. I think you may see the attitude of we're not going to emphasize the errors of the past.
Right.
I think you have to look at things in a more positive direction, and I think these folks are going to go in that direction. I'm certain that they don't come cheap. They're very well thought of in the educational industry. I'll call it an industry because I guess it is.
But once again, the state of Connecticut and the Department of Education is going to handle all those costs.
Yes, the Commissioner of Education is actually the answer to person here. No one from the town. They will answer to no one from the town. They answer to the Commissioner of Education.
That's great. That's fine. That's fantastic.
And that's for a minimum of 2 years. It could go to 4.
Right. So, which means that, you know, we have to get the right people who are getting on this 7-person panel that's going to help the receiver, and also coming up in the elections, as you mentioned, getting the right people who be good stewards of the Board of Ed, so we can actually demonstrate to the receiver and the commissioner that, you know, we're taking this seriously. We have the right people who have financial background. They have a keen interest in the special ed kids as well as the other kids who are attending the school.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great direction.
Yeah. And it takes out all the henpecking, so to speak.
The politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
For at least a couple of years.
That's great. One of the things I also read in here is that the receiver is going to supply periodic reports to the commissioner. Mm-hmm. And so as we're going forward on this, we're basically going to get either monthly or quarterly reports, and I'm hoping that those are going to be made public to the people of Winchester so we can actually see what's going on, or what do you hear about that?
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure they will. I mean, obviously, if there's any impact, I'm certain that the receiver or the Commissioner of Education will obviously be in touch with the town saying, we've doing this, we've done that, we need this or we need that. Mm-hmm. And I think the dialogue will open rather quickly. And I think that's just a great thing, you know, where I know as if I was the town manager right now, I'd be pulling my hair out and probably wouldn't have any. because there is no dialogue there between them, and
Right.
it's like a demand system. We need another 100,000. We need another 160. We needed it. Well, my position has always been is if, fine, show me the need.
Right.
But you have to show me the need in black and white. And if they haven't done a line item budget for 2 years that's accessible to people in finance or the people of this community would like to look at it, because there's a lot of bright people in our community that are attuned to the world of finance. So
Right.
now we may find you probably aren't going to see immediately any of those facts and figures until I'm sure any receiver or anyone in that capacity is going to make sure he's going in the right direction. And I think the State Board of Education will obviously be reviewing what he does or she does to make sure that it's done properly and there's no effect to the town of Winchester. People have said to me, well, we'll end up like Waterbury, we'll end up like some of the other towns. And I tell you, based on this legislation and the way it was passed, those towns didn't have this luxury.
Oh, really? What was the issue there?
Well, their towns and their school systems were a disaster too, and the state went in and took over with the receivers, same way. But they didn't have someone like Jay Case who made it into legislation to make sure that the towns or the city was protected like we are based on this legislation. I'm not an expert in the field, but by reading this, it's probably one of the most bulletproof things for the town of Winchester that we could get. It really is a wonderful thing. I'm just tickled by the whole thing.
No, I think so too, and I think a lot of people are just watching on the other TV station. They were showing some scenes from the Board of Ed conducting a meeting, and I think there was a big sentiment there that everybody was happy in the crowd that we're finally getting somebody responsible to take control over the situation and at least just move us forward in a positive manner.
Well, yes,
and it's about time.
But this whole thing really erupted when this Board of Education wanted to start farming out kids to other high schools and other junior high schools, and then talked about bringing 7th and 8th grade back to the K through 6 system, and say what you like about Gilbert, but they've got it under control, and they're doing a good job with our 7th and 8th graders. Their scholastical aptitude tests are way up from what they were prior, even during my administration, and it's just a great thing to see 7th and 8th grade up there in real educational process. Again, our receiver will undoubtedly be negotiating with them as well.
So their contract is null and void as of tonight as well.
Today, their contract expires. So it's a good thing to have somebody who can negotiate, because I don't think that this Board of Education has not demonstrated the capacity to negotiate with another school. Everything's down to the last minute and down to the wire with a lot of animosity involved. Right. And that sort of stuff isn't going to bring you over the threshold. That's not going to get you done.
You don't win friends that way.
No. Well, and Gilbert, their administration has got it under control. They've got it down. They know what it costs to educate a student. They know how they can do it and where they can cut one line item to meet another, and that's a good thing.
Well, because they're quasi-public, quasi-private, they actually have to prove, what they're doing.
Obviously, yeah, and they have a board of directors as well, so they have to answer to them, and that's a good thing. Are they perfect? Probably not.
Right, but they're on the right track.
They're much more on the right track than anybody.
Yeah.
So, I think we're going to find a better level of cooperation with what we're going to have here now, and I think it's going to bring better people into the political arena to serve on a Board of Education that are qualified. And not only have you need an educational background, so to speak, but I think the finance background is way more important because without the bucks, the kids get nothing.
Right.
And
Or are
you
the bucks
can't-
going in the right direction?
Exactly. So you can't just throw money at it and expect it to stick.
Or hire a consultant and hope everything's going to
Right.
work out for the best.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is going to be a learning process for a lot of people in our community, and rightfully so. And I think nobody better to do it than the system that's involved here.
That's great. One of the things I also noticed in here is they're talking about grants. And from what I understand, we weren't really taking advantage of a number of grants.
No.
You know, what's happening with that is that I understand the receiver is going to take an active role and make sure that, once again, in order not to punish the taxpayers, we're going to try to leverage as much opportunity as possible.
Yes, because every town has the opportunity of maintaining these grants in education. The only thing you have to do is fill out the form.
Right.
Apparently that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have people who are qualified to do that sort of thing. And on a state level, they understand better. And all that information will trickle down to newer people as this evolves, so that they're not going to be here forever. Eventually they will be gone, whether it's 2 years or 4 years. In the meantime, those folks need to educate the folks that are here.
Right. So we're building a team to
Exactly.
respond to this
and
in a
people
better
who
fashion.
can get along together to make sure that that happens, and not worry about throwing money at it, you know.
Right. Or trying to hide it and hope for the nobody finds out. But
Well,
anyhow.
you know, I don't think they know what they're hiding when they hide it, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
I think we're also going to see some issues arise with cleanup of past issues that may be lurking. There's an audit that needs to get done on the local level for the state, and I think that that we'll see.
Well, we've already gone through 2 audits, or 2 instances. We're still waiting for a third one from the federal government as far as the school lunch program goes. Is there any, does this bill affect any of that, or is that a totally separate animal?
No, it will be that'll be a separate anarchy of the administration of the receiver, and I think the State Department of Education, the commissioner there, has asked. I guess not asked. I guess demanded that this audit be performed on the town level. Now, I've been told that the federal audit is done and the state audit is done.
Oh, really?
And
They have a timeline for that, or?
no, they did it based on the issues that had arisen. So whether or not they'll go forward with, I think King and King was gave them a price of $3,000 to do this audit. And I think every taxpayer in this community deserves to know whether there was improprieties in the lunch program or not.
Right.
And for the cost of $3,000, it answers the call of those improprieties. Now, with that said, apparently the federal audit and state audit, because the feds give money for the lunch program, so they're involved. The state gives money for the lunch program, so they're involved. With that said, the local level has to answer. Now, whether this receiver will get that done
Right off the bat, or
in-house, or how, I don't know how he's going to approach that, and God bless him for however he goes about it. But I think that the outcome of this receiver will certainly demonstrate transparency throughout, and God knows we need that.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is trust between the town and the Board of Education, between the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I think the Finance Committee is worn out with them, you know. I mean,
banging their heads against the wall.
Yeah, because, I mean, anybody, I mean, in your household, you have a budget, and you don't go out and buy a new vacuum cleaner without knowing if the kitty's got enough money to cover for the vacuum cleaner, you know. And if the dishwasher breaks down, well, you might have to do them by hand for a month or two, you know, till we can scraping up enough money to buy that new dishwasher. And I think it's the same with, you take those basic practices and bring them into a larger circle, and they work. And I think that's where you see the Board of Finance looking at it and saying, wow, just get a washing machine.
Yeah, right.
Well, you got 5 of them already.
Yeah, right. Use one and be done with it.
So I think all those types of things will end. And I think the level of comfort for the people of this community will be a lot better than what they've seen in the past.
I know one of the things that Mayor Bouchard's been pushing is this common accounting system between the town and the Board of Ed.
I think you'll see that being implemented a lot sooner.
Right off the bat,
I believe that is going to be there, because that's, the finance director on the town level, the finance director for Board of Education, they need to be able to communicate on the same wavelength.
Right.
They need to know each other's line items, and they need to know how they're going to shuffle some money if they need to.
Because the town does contribute for some things that are non-education related.
So so I think that's a no-brainer. Plus, it also is one more person that's overseeing the financial costs. So you've got more people answering to the call.
Just like on the town side, we separate out the treasurer. We made definite delineations between who's receiving money and who's paying out money. And so if we can get that kind of rapport going on with the Board of Ed, we'll see the kind of success that we've had so far the past couple of years.
Yeah, we learned from our mistakes there. So now we're going to learn from our mistakes here. And I'm just tickled that we've got people that are going to be there to do that, and it's not going to cost us any money to get it done.
That's great.
And I won't, I say it isn't going to cost us any money to get it done. Our MBR is $19.9 million. We haven't got a clue how that $19.9 million got spent last year or the year before.
Right.
But we supposedly got $400,000 back, and now $200,000 they want $200,000 back from the town now.
And maybe tomorrow it'll be $300,000.
But I think all those issues are null and void. And I think the receiver will stop and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And the state will be there in his back pocket to make sure that all our bills are paid for the Board of Education, and that we're going to be going forward in the next educational season in September and have a lot more on the table, so we know how we're going to do it, which is grand.
Now, getting back, I don't know if we covered this earlier or not, but we're talking about this 7-person panel that the receiver is going to work with, basically representatives from the town, possibly 3 or more residents. But I'm just looking at the bill here in the law, and it's saying that the members of this board shall be residents of the town of Winchester, no employee of the town of Winchester or school district for the town of Winchester, or no immediate family as defined in a subdivision of Section 179 of the General Statutes of such employees to be eligible to serve on the board. So they're really trying to make this as impartial as possible, so that there's no influence from existing educational interests.
Right. Well, three of those folks must be from the town of Winchester.
Right.
It doesn't say that the other 4 have to be. I would preclude it. I would like to see 7 people from our town involved.
Now, are these people sort of like a pre-Board of Ed? So once we come out of the 2 years, this panel would move on to become the Board of Ed, or is that, or do we still have a separate Board of Ed? Like when the elections come up in November, do we have the panel of 7, and then do we basically run candidates for the BOE?
We will run candidates for the BOE, and the state would be expecting that. What I see from this in the 7-member board is I see a delinquent Board of Education. And when I say delinquent, I mean they will be non-existent. I'm pretty sure that I don't want to put words out there that aren't proper, but if it was I certainly wouldn't want to have to deal with what got us in trouble.
Right. You want a clean slate.
Yes. And based on what I read there in the language, that's what I believe those 7 people are there for. And that's why the local flavor to it. And that's why I would like to see 7 good people come out, that 7 good people that all could work together and work with the receiver to achieve the goals that he's going to set forward. And that's what they're going to be there for, is for him to bounce those issues off of, obtain the flavor of the community for that issue. And I think that's important. That's how you build cooperation. So I think that's, in my estimation, is what those 7 members are going to be doing. As I said earlier, existing Board of Education will be powerless, so they might as well be non-existent as of midnight tonight.
That's great. I know a lot of focus, which led us to a lot of problems we have right now, was overspending on the special education side. Is there any comment about, for the parents of the special ed kids, how does this affect them? What's going to happen?
Well, I think that now you're going to see a proficient budget that's going to be put forward based on the number of students that are in special education. And I think you'll also see a cushion for special education kids that may come into the system mid-year or during the year, that school year, which is obviously something that needs to be done. Will they have to be concerned? I think they should be delighted to see this happening for their children. And as I think all parents that have children in the school system in our community should be delighted. Because now they're going to be knowing that their dollars spent are going to the children, and they're going,
and they'll find their way to the appropriate
channels and the appropriate kids that may need it. Now, you and I had a discussion, I know, on dollars in MBR for special education kids and how that goal is achieved through the state, and it's a pretty complicated formula. And I don't know if you want to get into it. It's probably not. We don't probably have to, but it's something that I think anyone who has a child in a special ed program here in our community understands, which I'm not claiming to be any expert on.
Well, put it simply, and this is where the Board of Ed got into trouble, at least this time around, was with the excess funding. So what happens is that each town has a base cost per student.
Right.
And let's say it's 15,000. As you said, it's probably upwards about 18. But let's say it's 15,000.
I think it is 15 now. When I was in, it was 13, and I may have misquoted that earlier on.
Let's say it's 15, so that all the students in town start off at the 15,000. Now, the state recognizes that there are going to be some students who are going to require additional services, additional education and support, and so they allot each town the ability to reach sort of like a baseline amount, sort of like what you have with your insurance. You have to meet your deductible.
Right. And
so the deductible is basically 4.5 times the base amount. So if you multiply 4.5 times the 15,000, you come up with $67,500.
Yeah.
So that the town of Winchester, for the special ed kids, it comes out of the MBR cost and other monies, so that you get up to that 67.
But it would behoove us then to have a lesser cost per student,
right?
A lesser MBR,
right? Exactly.
And then the 4.5 doesn't multiply up so fast.
Right. So as the per student cost actually gets higher and higher, that amount, that 4.5 multiplier, really starts to get you in a mathematical sense.
Yeah.
So yes, if we had a $12,000 per student cost, then 4.5 times that would work out to about 40 some odd.
Right.
But anyhow. So what happens is that once you meet your deductible, once the town meets the deductible, and this is on a per student basis, that the state will come in and say, okay, anything beyond that,
beyond the
67.5, beyond your amount there, they'll pick up. But there's not really, it's sort of a nebulous area in there. So it's kind of, there's no, you have to identify what the money's going to.
Right.
It's basically, they'll just handle that.
Right.
Typically, if you look at what towns do, the towns rarely go beyond that. They rarely even meet that amount. So it's kind of unusual that Winchester was having so much trouble in this area.
Well, it wouldn't be so much trouble in the accounting aspect had they taken each individual student and created a spreadsheet for each individual student. That way they would know where they were going, and they could actually plot and plan to see what they were going to be needing or what they wouldn't be needing as the year grew on.
And as I also had learned about some of the other special ed grants for the base, the core special ed grant, they're very strict as to what you have to do. You have to put out a plan. You have to identify how many kids you have. There's about 35 to 45 different things as far as transportation, education, special, this, that, or whatever. And the superintendent actually has to sign off on that, and is responsible financially for
that.
what they do. And so I'm not quite sure what's happening in this town as far as applying for that grant, but there are mechanisms in place that actually allow you and force you to fall within. And it's all electronic too, so there's not like you're running in the back of a napkin. You actually have to submit this to the state of Connecticut in digital form.
Well, obviously, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we're at where we're at with this, and because their accounting practices were so out of, they weren't existent. This new lady they seem to have there now seems to have a little better handle on it than anybody I've seen in the last few years. But I can tell you, she seems to be under a lot of pressure, trying to get things done. They've recently adopted a new program, I guess, to keep track of their pennies now too, which was a good step in the right direction. But and hopefully that all, and I think that all will. That's that program. I forget the name of it, but it's a program that's widely used in school systems. So hopefully we can get that to link up with what the town has, so that money that is passing back and forth, and we have two finance directors that are looking at the same stuff, and that becomes a way to plan how you're going to appropriate funds and how you're going to appropriate in the right places and in the right spaces. So hopefully that'll
And I remember a few years back that the town actually voted in referendum to have the town finance director oversee or have some kind of purview in that.
In my administration, actually, at 2007 to 2009, we had done that, and it was supposed to have taken place back then. And then when I left office, all of that seemed to go by the wayside, including closing a school and consolidating those finance programs so that everybody knew what was going on. But it is what it is now. We're dealing with the cards that are there. No point in going back. We might as well just start to look forward.
Well, one of the things I want to touch base on once again is this whole concept of we're sort of staring at a large sum of money that's come up in the past month or so as to repayment for a lot of the over purchases. And one of the things it says here in section 307 is that the town of Winchester may apply for a waiver of repayment as specified if the town demonstrates significant improvement in the fiscal and financial practice of its school district, that structural changes have been implemented to ensure that the school district is properly handling taxpayer funds. Properly handling taxpayer funds. And I know there's a cheer that's going out there.
That was written by a Republican, by the way.
Was it? And it satisfies other such criteria as required by the commissioners. So that's like the $1 million thing. So
yes.
So if we keep our nose clean, if we follow what the commissioner says and what the receiver directs, we could actually minimize the impact to the taxpayer.
Could be non-existent.
It could be non-existent.
Exactly. Including the $730,000.
And what happens is with that such a waiver, when submitted, it's sort of like we're on parole. You have to go before the parole board in 2 years. And it says that the subsection may be approved only by majority vote of the State Board of Education and then behind a recommendation of the commissioner. So this is totally outside the hands of the local town.
Yes.
And it should be fairly objective.
For 2 years, the town of Winchester has no Board of Education, unless the receiver appoints one. They have no authority to deal with it. It's all the state, period.
Yeah, that's great.
And at least we'll know we have qualified people at the helm again.
And one of the other things that you touched on before is this whole concept of, we have these 3 elementary schools for about 600 kids, which is about 200 kids per school. And a lot of those kids are being bussed out of district, for whatever reason. So I know that's one of the aspects of this legislation is that we're really going to take a hard look as to what our requirements are.
We have we have one school building that's got some real issues with mold and things like that too. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to get a handle on this stuff, and we're going to see how we can restructure and rehabilitate our school system. I'm just, like I said, tickled to death over this legislation. Can't thank Jay Case enough and the rest of the folks who helped him develop this bill. And for those folks who thought, Jay wasn't getting involved. He certainly was involved, but he wasn't privy to discuss the information that was being put forward for this bill until it came to a draft form. Mm-hmm. And the draft form came out, I believe, was Saturday.
Right.
In which it was a draft form. But the draft form on the 20 lines for the town of Winchester were not altered or were not modified. They were taken verbatim in the bill. So
I know Jay had to vote against the overall legislation.
Yes, he
because
did.
The Democrats up there in the legislature loaded up quite a bit of money.
They attached $1.4 billion worth of spending in
1.4?
Yeah,
billion.
Billion. That's not million. That's billion dollars worth of spending to this. And we have 20 lines, which equates to about almost 4 pages in the bill. And there's 600 and, what did I say? There was
686.
86 pages to the bill. So Jay was caught in a quandary of wanting to support his bill.
Because it's important for Winchester.
And making sure that the town of Winchester got what they needed. Not too many Republicans actually voted for this bill.
Oh, that's good.
I understood that there wasn't any Republicans that voted for it, and there were 2 Democrats that didn't vote for it. But the majority, because the majority in the House and Senate are Democrats, it carried by a slim margin.
We just don't have the numbers there to.
And Jay was watching the board along with folks, other Republican legislators, as the votes were coming in. And once it reached a certain amount of voters, he knew it was going to go, so he didn't have an impact with that. So don't give Jay bad impact on not voting for his own bill, because Jay was voting, as a Republican should, for not increasing state spending by $1.4 billion. And folks, last year, the implementer bills, which this is, were a total of $1.8 billion in additional spending. So do the math. Yeah. I mean, look where we're headed here. But I'm just, he was, for the lack of a better phrase, like a cat shitting razor blades, excuse my English, over this thing.
I guess I'll have to bleep that out.
Yeah, they probably will. But, I had to say it.
We understand the spirit in which it was said.
Yeah. So yes, Jay's done a lot of hard work on this, and I tell you,
he took a lot of arrows.
He took a lot of arrows over it too, and a lot of those folks that were doing a lot of the hard work to find out what was going on were disillusioned by him a bit during the process, and he couldn't say what he was up to because. One, he's writing a bill; it's legal process, and 2, you don't want this information to leak to the wrong people that may be a detriment to the bill passing. So he did a great job.
But I know Jay told me to talk about those people that were out there sort of questioning what's going on. Those people with all the emails and from the parents of the students and the town people, I mean, that really made the difference up in the state capitol.
Yes, it did.
Jay told me that over the weekend.
Yes, it did.
It was tremendous, the amount of pressure
that they put on. Yes.
So I think the entire town should be commended
as well. Yeah.
So there's.
I'm sorry, I didn't even.
No.
I've been focused on what's in here. You're right.
No, he told me that that was actually got all the wheels moving right up to the governor's office. And he said if it wasn't for the people of Winchester and people like Art Melcher and some of the other people that were really pushing with freedom of information requests Lois and some others out there who were really doing a huge amount of work on their own to identify, you guys have to take a look at this. There's really a problem here.
Yes.
And they got the message loud and clear up at the Capitol, which shows that if you participate, if you're a citizen activist and you care about your town, great things can happen, as we're seeing with this particular legislation.
Absolutely. Well said, by the way.
Thank you. Which brings us to, we've had, and Mickey knows because he's on the nominating committee with the Republican Town Committee, is that we've had large number of people that have come to us over the past month or so saying, I really want to get in. These are people who have never been involved with politics before. They said, we don't like what's going on with the Board of Education. I want to participate. I want to get out there, be a part of it, and I want to get on the slate. Any comments about
well, it seems
about that?
Well, we've had a number of good candidates come forward as Republicans. We've had a number of other people come forward of unaffiliated parties come forward to us looking for that. But we've kind of got our slots full. I think we can say that. I'm not going to say
we have enough
names.
people to cover all the bases.
Well, I'm not sure we're going to now, Jer. We may have to look at we may have to go review all that again because
of this panel.
Well, here's a thought. If the new director comes in, what was he called? I forget.
The receiver.
Receiver.
I know.
It's kind of like bankruptcy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're in Chapter 11 here.
But when a new receiver comes in, he may
pick his own team.
He's going to have his own team. He's going to have probably 2 or 3 administrators. He's going to have, say, 7 people. Now, the state has said that they want to see the election in November. Now, if we're going to abolish if he abolishes the entire Board of Education as it exists, which I expect he probably will.
I expect that too.
Then we may need 2 more candidates because we only have 3 spots.
Oh, really?
So we may need 5 spots open. So we may need 2 more candidates. So anybody who's watching who may be interested in a spot in the Republican Town Committee Board of Education as a candidate, contact Jerry. Don't contact me. And let them know who you are and why you think you might want to do that.
Or attend the next Republican meeting, which is always the town committee meeting, which is always the 3rd Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock at the town hall at the Blue Room.
That brings us down to July 17th, and we need to caucus and have our candidates ready by July 31st. So
July 29th at 4 p.m.
Okay.
I have to have everything submitted as the chairman submitted to this.
If you're interested in the position, call Jerry. Really call Jerry, or get a hold of me. I'll give you Jerry's
Or
number.
actually any of the Republicans in town, because I know that everybody is out there listening to people are coming forward, not only for the Board of Ed, but for Board of Selectmen, town clerk, all the different positions. There's a lot of excitement out there amongst our community, and it's really electrifying as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think we're, this whole thing with the Board of Education is going to free up more time for the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Commission
to really do
so that they can really do what they're intended to do, and let them go in the direction they need to go to. So I think it's a win-win for us to get this accomplished.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really, you sort of experience as you're going along with it, but you really don't realize the drag that this whole affair has been on the town. Not only from the selectmen, but the people, the parents, this whole business of trying to, move the 7th and 8th graders here or there, and the whole thing with moving them out of district. I mean, that was, and the whole animosity toward Gilbert, it's just been unnecessary and just draining, I think.
You got to, you got to equate Winsted to a family, a large family. And if you don't have a strong leader of the family,
I want to say patriarch, but these days it can be a matriarch.
If you don't have a strong leader, being a mommy or daddy, you're going to have chaos in amongst the children. And I think a lot of that chaos will subside based on this now, because the chaos has been in the last 6 months over the Board of Education, seriously over the Board of Education. So I think it's a good thing. And again, the costs aren't going to be there for the town of Winchester. They're all going to be borne by the state of Connecticut, although we are all state taxpayers. But it's good to know that a portion of our taxes will be to the state are going to be put right back into the town of Winchester, so that's a good thing. And no physical responsibility financially for the town of Winchester based on this takeover by the state.
Yeah, and I know that's been weighing in a lot of minds of the taxpayers as to
Yes.
what was going to happen
Yes.
here. So that's good.
And see, a lot of the other towns had that. They were forced to pay the state for the receiver and his staff and any expenses that were incurred. We don't have that.
Right, and I think once again to credit Jay,
Yes.
just navigating us through the rocks there to get on
Yes.
the shore. I think it's been a huge success here.
I can't imagine the amount of minutia he pushed to the side as he was navigating to put this into ink, with his legal staff. And I can't say I'm just impressed. I'm totally impressed by it. Just greatest thing since sliced bread.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank my counterpart here for giving us all the details as to what happened. We got it straight from Jay Case.
Yeah, he spent
less than
he
6
spent
hours ago.
Yeah, he spent
So
an
it's
hour
all
with
fresh.
me this afternoon. So and it was great. He brought the copy of that to me. He had a copy for you, but I think the boy's burnt out a little bit right now. And
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
He needs a rest and a little break.
No, that's fine. Well deserved. Plus, I also want to thank the citizens of Winchester. I mean, this was a huge win for everybody in town
It
because
is.
everybody fought hard for this, and there was a number of different rallies, and I know that a number of the parents actually got together and tried to politically move this forward.
And there were good things that came out of that.
I think so.
Yeah, there were good things that came out of that. And those people, as you said, that went to the Capitol, banging their fist on the table.
Yeah. And all the emails. So
Yeah.
it does work. When you do get involved, there is movement, and especially if you have the right legislature, the town selectmen, everybody's pulling for that movement, then you get great things happening.
Yep. So hopefully we can move on to, when Jay gets a little rest in him, we can move on to bigger and better things like the Newfield Road and finish up getting the bridge ready to go. And
No, I agree.
on Halvard and that's
And the other thing, which I know,
still on schedule, by the way.
right, and I know what. Did Jay say that? Did he say that
Yeah.
Newfield's still on schedule?
Yeah, I guess there's an issue with Frontier, who bought out AT&T. I guess the engineer who was in charge of it retired, and they're just getting back up to speed. I guess there's a little glitch in there, but I guess that's coming to pass. It's still on schedule to be done next year. So
That's good, because for us who live in Winchester Center, that's one of the ways down to get out.
Yeah, and he's trying to dig now for some money for Newfield Road, I guess, to get that under control. Maybe for this year.
Great. Well, that sounds good, Mick. I'm glad we were able to have this.
I don't want to be the spokesman for Jay.
No,
Case by any
but he
means.
just happened to talk to you first, so
And I know he was tired, and I know he actually his phone
was
blew
going
up.
off, or
No, it blew up on him, I guess, during session last night.
Melted down on
Yeah,
him?
had a meltdown because it was too many phone calls. He had to go get a new phone this morning.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, folks. We're going to wrap it up here, and once again, thank you to my friend Micky Ham. My name is Jerry Martinez, and we'll see you the next time on Winchester Facts.
Good night, folks.
Good night.